introduce yourself? Okay, so my name is Melvin, and I was the bundle for Mrs Horsehair that night. Please explain me your point of view of the situation. Okay, so the guests started arriving around 7:30 p.m. I saw Reverend Trulove, the neighbors, which were old Mr. Archibald and his son. And then there was Dame Christie, the lady novelist. It was before dinner. I went to the parlor and served drinks with them, and I noticed that things weren't actually going so well. I saw Miss Daphne. She looked as if she had been crying. She was talking to young Mr. Archibald in the hall, and then he looked unhappy as well. Then I saw Mr. Jeffrey. He looked very angry, and Miss Topless was also furious. I mean, I couldn't see why. Her companion, Mr. Oscarson, was flirting with Miss Horsehair all week.
What happened after dinner?
They served pork to the gentleman in the billiard room, and I left the kitchen, and as I was making my way to the billiard room, I saw Miss Daphne. Miss Daphne was wearing blue that time. She gave me a note, and she asked me to pass it to young Archibald. I couldn't help but read it. It said, "Darling, meet me here at the conservatory at 9:30 p.m. Desperately, Daphne." So then I went to the billiard room and served pork to them, and passed off the note to young Mr. Archibald. And then I left, went to the kitchen where I stayed until 9:30 p.m. So that's when I went out to refill their ports. Then I saw Miss Topless coming out of the parlor and went to the ballroom. As she opened the door, I heard voices, and I caught a glimpse of a young man in a white suit, which I assume was Mr. Oscarson. Then when I went to the billiard room, I only saw Reverend Trulove, Mr. Jeffrey, and old Mr. Archibald. Jeffrey went to the library. He took the phone calendar with me. He said something about writing a letter there. So now I went to the kitchen and stayed there till about 10 p.m. That's when I heard a loud, piercing scream. So I went out and I saw the Charlotte there standing in the hall with a tray of coffee cups. Then she gasped, "Velvet, the library." And so I rushed to the library, and there I saw Miss Horsehair lying dead on the floor. She had a head injury, and then there was smashed pork decanters, and I saw the glasses lying around the floor. I looked around the room, and I saw that there was an ashtray of cigarettes, the kind that it was full, and I saw it was the kind that Mr. Jeffrey would smoke. And I also noticed that the library window and the door connecting to the billiard room was open. Then I tried to call for help, and then young Mr. Archibald and Miss Daphne came out of the conservatory, and then later joined by Dame Christie, and then also came Mr. Oscarson and Miss Topless, and then later by Mr. Jeffrey, who came in calling for help because he found the vicar lying unconscious outside.
I went upstairs to put on my new uniform.
Reverend Truelove, old Mr. Archibald and his son, and a famous lady novelist were joining the weekend guests for dinner. So it was a formal event. As I got to the top of the stairs, I heard angry voices coming from Mrs. Horsehair's room, and guessed that Mrs. Horsehair and her niece were having another one of their rows. I tried not to listen, but couldn't help catching one phrase very distinctly. Mrs. Horsehair shouted, "If you marry him, you stupid little fool, I'll cut you off without a penny." Then the door burst open, and Miss Daphne rushed out, sobbing. She ran straight to her own room and slammed the door. I came downstairs again about 15 minutes later and heard Mr. Jeffrey talking on the telephone in the hall. I tried not to listen, but I couldn't help overhearing one or two phrases. "Can't you wait a little bit longer? The old woman's so damn mean with her money." There was a long pause. Then he said, "I'll find the money somehow," and slammed the receiver down. I guess he was talking to one of his gambling companions. Mr. Jeffrey is very fond of roulette, but his mother disapproves and tries to prevent him gambling by keeping him short of money. From 7:15 till 8 o'clock, I was in the kitchen preparing the food, but peeped out to watch the guests arrive. Young Mr. Archibald looked very dashing in a blue velvet suit. Dinner was at 8, and as soon as I came in with the soup, I noticed that things weren't going too well. Dame Christie and Myrtleberry seemed to be getting on quite well, discussing some murder to great detail. But Jeffrey looked like thunder, and young Mr. Archibald looked terribly unhappy. He's passionately in love with Miss Daphne, you know. Daphne looked as if she were about to cry, and the actress, Miss Topless, looked a little bit annoyed as well. This might have been because she and Miss Daphne were wearing exactly the same dress, or it might have been because her companion, Mr. Oscarson, and Mrs. Horsehair were having a very intimate conversation at one end of the table. Reverend Truelove and old Mr. Archibald tried to keep the conversation going, but it was quite early when dinner broke up at about 9 o'clock. The ladies then retired to the parlor for coffee, and the gentlemen went to the billiard room. I served coffee and then went back to the kitchen to clear up. At about 9:45, I went into the parlor to collect the coffee cups, and as I crossed the hall, I overheard loud voices in the ballroom. I tried not to listen, but it sounded very like Miss Topless. Suddenly, the door opened and Mrs. Horsehair came out. She looked rather embarrassed on seeing me and said, "Oh, Charlotte, I was looking for my book. Do you know where it might be?" I said that I hadn't seen it, and she muttered something about looking in the library and made off in that direction. I went on into the parlor where I found Dame Christie, Myrtleberry, and old Mr. Archibald deep in conversation. They were still talking about murder. I couldn't help listening. It made me feel quite cold. So I collected up the cups as slowly as I could. As I was doing this, I heard a door slam in the hall, followed by the sound of footsteps crossing the hall. Then the front door slammed. I finished collecting the cups and went out into the hall, and no one was there. I started to cross the hall towards the kitchen. Suddenly, I heard a piercing scream. It came from the library. I couldn't move. I tried to call for help, but couldn't make a sound. The kitchen door opened and Velvet, the butler, came running out. He looked at me in astonishment. I gasped. The library. And then I fainted.
You like her? And I felt that evening at the Conquest felt a bit off because Mrs. Horsehair has just told me that she was remarrying, and then the tensions were high, and especially with her son, Jeffrey. At dinner you could cut the air with a knife because you kind of feel the tension, you know. And later after the dinner I went for a walk outside, and then I saw Jeffrey stormed out without even talking to me. And then as I headed back in, I felt someone behind me, and before I could turn, I could see my mouth was something covered my mouth, and then a blow to my head, and everything went dark. And then the next thing I know, there was a murder. So that's all that I can remember. Oh yeah, and then I kind of saw like a bit, like a hint, a flash of blue before I went absolutely dark.